What's up, guys? I'm BTC. The lore in Overwatch has been changing slowly over time, but as more and more gets added to the game, it's going to have a bigger impact on what potential characters can be added. Is this good or is this bad? There's a lot of different ways that Blizzard updates the lore for Overwatch. They can't really do it in-game all that much because the way the game is played, there just simply isn't that many lore elements. I mean, you might be able to find little tidbits here and there in a map, or perhaps the goal of a particular map might have something to do with the story, but for the most part, match after match is played and there's no update to any of the story at all. Most of it is going to come from the animated shorts, the comics, and whatever extra stuff that they might happen to release, usually in the form of teasers for new characters and new maps. All of these changes can have a really big impact on the type of characters that we can get in the future. And Hammond being just added is a really big issue. In fact, half of the developer team for Overwatch thinks that it's a terrible idea and they did not want the character being added to the game. We'll come back to that in just a second. The general story of the Overwatch universe started out pretty solid. You had a bunch of these incidents with the Omnic Crisis, the Omnic War, all that sort of stuff, and the world created this division called Overwatch, which was used to combat all of this sort of stuff. There was other groups like Talon, for example, which was kind of this underground criminal group that was just doing their own thing, and not too much was known about them other than they were trying to get more power and make changes that they wanted in the world. So the basic idea of the story was pretty solid. But then over time, they started just getting sloppy, and the lore in Overwatch has just essentially turned into a big mess. There's lots of plot holes, lots of conflicting stuff, and just lots of continuity errors. And to be perfectly blunt, the disconnecting elements of the story and the damage to the overall integrity of the story has already been done. And I just don't care about it anymore. There's really nothing I think that they could add that is going to make me actually care about the story. There's certainly going to be interesting stuff and cool things to look at, like the animated shorts, because those are always really well done. I just don't think I can care about the story anymore. It's just too much of a mess. A good example of this is the entire mess that we have with Gabriel Reyes, who would later become Reaper. So during the Retribution event, Talon launched an attack on Overwatch, which killed a whole bunch of Overwatch personnel and almost killed one of Reaper's really good friends, Gerard. So this caused Gabriel Reyes to go after Talon in Rialto, and he would take out Antonio because of this. However, at a later time, Talon would kidnap Gerard's wife, who would become Widowmaker. She would go back and kill Gerard for good this time. Now, at some point between all of this, we're expected to believe that Gabriel Reyes would suddenly forgive Talon, join them, and work alongside Widowmaker, who was responsible for his best friend's death. This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I'm sure at some point they're going to go back and try to fix these plot holes, but the disconnect and the damage has already been done. I just couldn't be bothered to care about it anymore. So now I'm sure you're asking, what does any of that have to do with a genetically engineered, hyper-intelligent hamster in a mech? Well, the thing is, story will work as long as it stays within the same universe. As long as your immersion is never broken, then it's okay. If there are elements added to a story that allow you to stay within that story, then you can accept whatever they happen to throw at you. So in the universe of Overwatch, we know that there was a lot of experiments on animals on the moon. So the gorillas became hyper-intelligent. So naturally, other animals could be hyper-intelligent as well. It seems kind of ridiculous to have the hyper-intelligent hamster in a mech, but it still falls within the rules of Overwatch. And because it's within the rules, then you can accept it. There's a really good example in one of the Superman movies when the Great Wall of China had been destroyed. Superman used his laser eye vision to repair the wall, and it completely destroyed the immersion for most of the people that were watching the movie because they knew that Superman doesn't have that power. It was simply created because the movie studio lacked the money or the funding or the special effects or whatever they needed in order to do the repair of the wall properly, so they just kind of took the easy way out and said, we're going to have laser eyes do it. And it just destroyed the immersion for that. So as long as Overwatch doesn't break that immersion, then you're fine. The reason why I don't care about the Reaper story anymore is because they put in too many plot holes and conflicting information that just broke the immersion for me. So I just don't care, because I already had my suspension of disbelief shattered. However, when we're talking about new characters, it means that they can push the envelope a lot further as long as they stay within the rules. So we've known that there were experiments on the gorillas and on a hamster. It's entirely possible there could be other animals that have been experimented on. This could be an entirely new subsection of characters that gets added to the game. On top of that, we have the Omnics, who have a tremendous amount of variety, and we've seen almost nothing of that yet. So there is a huge amount of potential for Blizzard to add new Omnic characters, and it doesn't need to just fall into the stuff that we've already seen with like the Zenyatas and the Bastions and the Orissas. There's all kinds of stuff that they could add. Like, the sky is the limit almost for that sort of stuff. Then we also have the Junkers, and we know that there's lots of stuff going on there with the radiation and the modifications and all sorts of stuff. So they could add Junker characters, which apparently a lot of people actually want to see. They could add Junkers who have just all kinds of crazy stuff. But the thing is, as long as it stays within the rules, then it's going to be fine, and it's going to be accepted, because the immersion is not being broken. It's when they start messing with the lore and they start adding all of these little elements that don't make sense, or they conflict, or they have plot holes or continuity errors, that's when things start to not work. So as long as Blizzard gets their act together and starts putting out more consistent storyline, I think it's going to be fine. And they actually do have the potential to add some really crazy, push-the-envelope style kind of characters. My immersion with Reaper was broken because of all the problems that I talked about earlier. My immersion with Hammond was not broken because I knew that there was a facility on the moon. I knew that they were doing genetic testing on animals there. I knew that Hammond was one of the test subjects, and I knew that he had escaped. All of these things were put into place before the character was actually added. So I was already being prepared for the eventuality that Hammond was going to be added to the game. My immersion was never broken. The fact that he's a hyper-intelligent hamster doesn't change that. This same kind of logic can be applied to other character types that previously were thought to be a little too out there. For example, Jetpack Cat. Can't go through this whole topic without bringing up Jetpack Cat. He was one of the original character concepts for the game. They thought it was a little too far out there and they didn't want to add him. But we just got a genetically engineered hyper-intelligent hamster, so really, I think most stuff is kind of fair game at this point. But also, look at what we have. We have proof that characters, animals, have been experimented on, genetically altered. Then we also have Brigitte, who has the blueprints for the jetpack itself, and we also have some other lines and stuff and images inside of Brigitte's origin story. So all of this stuff has been built up. As long as that stuff exists prior to the character being added to the game, again, the immersion is not broken. It's perfectly fine, as long as it fits within the rules of the universe. No rebuilding the Great Wall with your laser eyes. Also, on the topic of the animated shorts, I know it's been a while, but I think it's pretty much a guarantee that we'll get a new animated short every single year at BlizzCon. Whether or not we get an extra bonus one during the year, I don't know, but I'm willing to bet probably not. I think it's mostly going to be a BlizzCon-related thing. They're going to keep adding animated shorts, and maybe we'll just get comics in between to kind of fill it out. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with one half of the Overwatch developer team that a hamster was just too far? Or do you agree with the other half that says, yeah, you know what, it fits within the rules of the universe, so it's perfectly fine? And if so, what other kinds of crazy characters would you like to see? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out my Discord server. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter. The links for that stuff are down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.